Hello, and welcome back to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Rachel, a spiritual medium and intuitive coach. And I'm so excited that you're here to join me on this intuitive development journey. And I'm so excited to be back after taking a couple of weeks off, after just having my little baby boy. For those of you who didn't see on Instagram, we did give birth to a beautiful little baby boy last week or 2 weeks ago on May 8th at 8:08 a.m. So lots of eights in his birth time and birth chart, which is really cool. And I'm interested to definitely explore what that means for him. We named our little boy Benny. And we're adjusting we're adjusting slowly to being a family of four. It has been really blissful and beautiful, but also definitely a bit of a bumpy ride adjusting to managing two babies at the same time. I do have a 2-year-old who still nurses and still sleeps in the bed with us. And so sleeping has been a bit of an adjustment. Nursing has been a bit of an adjustment, but we are just in love and enraptured with our beautiful new baby and are really excited to see how the brothers' relationship grows. And so I do have to admit, I was wrong. I really thought this baby was going to be a girl. And to our delight and surprise, he's a beautiful baby boy. And I'm so excited for our son Noah to have a little brother so close in age, and hopefully their relationship will grow. So thank you to all of you who reached out to me on Instagram and messaged me with congratulations. It's so nice, and I feel so loved by so many of you. So thank you so much for that. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm actually recording this episode wearing little baby boy. Here today, he's asleep on my chest as I record this episode. So I'm really excited to jump back into recording this podcast, and hopefully I'll be back very soon channeling messages from your spirit guides together. But I'm really excited to dive into this topic today because I really feel like it is the really good stepping stone, a really good beginning for people who are just starting out to notice and develop their intuitive abilities. And so, if you saw the episode title, we're talking about signs and symbols and number patterns and angelic numbers. And these are really something that I find that a lot of people tend to lean on at the beginning of their spiritual awakening. This is a thing that we kind of start to notice all of a sudden. We start to see angel numbers 1111 or 222 all over the place, or we start to kind of see certain symbols or animals kind of pop up into our vision, and we just start seeing them everywhere. And it's really a big sign of a spiritual awakening. And it really was kind of the first step for me as well as I was stepping into this path of developing my intuition. But what a lot of people, talk to me about and clients kind of say to me is, I see this happening. I see these signs and symbols. I see these numbers all the time, and I have no idea what to do with them or what to do about them. I don't know what they mean. Don't know what to do with it. I don't know what message is being sent my way. And, how do I continue further down this path if I'm seeing these numbers? What am I supposed to do? And so that's what this episode is going to be about, is what are you supposed to do, and what does it mean when you receive or see all of these signs and symbols kind of pop up in your mind, in your world, in your periphery, and what to do about it. So that's what we're definitely going to talk about today. And then I did ask on Instagram if you guys were interested in hearing my free birth story. I did give birth to this baby alone in my master bathroom, in the company of my husband and my son, but nobody else. There were no midwives, there was no OBG. We had a wild pregnancy, so no medical intervention whatsoever, no ultrasounds, no anything, and no medical intervention whatsoever in the birth process as well. And it was a unanimous big yes to please share this story and how we came to this decision to do so. And so I will be recording that this week, and that will be next week's episode, is to my free birth story. Although it's a little bit off topic about intuitive development, definitely a big part of me. And the reason to do so came through in a very spiritual way. So I'm excited to share that, and I'm gathering my my thoughts and my notes as I'm still processing the birth, the beautiful birth that we had. And I will hopefully be sharing that with you next week on the podcast. So definitely stay tuned for next week's episode if you're curious about what brought me to give birth all by myself. I do want to say it was a very beautiful experience. It was a very enlightening experience, and very empowering for sure. So definitely excited to share that with you. But let's talk a little bit about the signs and symbols. And then before we dive into that, I do want to remind you that while it is still the month of May, you can still book a session with my beautiful colleague Indra using the coupon code Indra, all caps INDRA, for 15% off your reading. This code is going to expire at the end of the month of May, and there will not be a deal this good for a while. So I highly suggest you grab your reading with Indra. And thank you so much to those who've already booked sessions with Indra. I've been getting so much beautiful feedback. People are loving their experience with her so far. They're feeling really enlightened. They're connecting with their loved ones. And I do want to underline here that I do tell my clients that connecting with loved ones is not my strong suit, but it is one of Indra's, and she's very, very talented in connecting with your loved ones. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely make sure to book a session with Indra and use the coupon code before it expires. So don't miss out on this opportunity. She is doing fabulously and taking over for me while I am, on this little short maternity leave and nurturing my new little baby. So definitely go ahead over to my website, jessicarachel.co, and book a session with Indra using the coupon code Indra, all caps. Also, it is still the month of May, so if you have not listened to the May energy forecast yet, I highly recommend checking it out. There's still 2 weeks, or maybe at this point, 1 week left in the month, but it's not too late to start applying some of the suggestions that were channeled through by that divine angel that I channeled at the beginning of the month. The energy theme was all about identity shift. So go and listen back and see, if, some of the things that were channeled maybe have already happened for you. And if not, maybe they are something that you can focus on for the tail end of this month. For those of you that are watching this on the podcast, know that the energy forecasts are only, if you're watching it on YouTube, the energy forecasts are only available on the podcast platform. So on Apple or Spotify, not on YouTube. So definitely make sure to go over to Apple or Spotify and, subscribe to the Intuition Activation podcast so you can listen to the energy forecast each month. And I'm going to try to release them on the first of every month going forward. So you know when they're coming out and you can start to, apply the principles or whatever the advice is that comes through from those divine beings for the month ahead. So definitely go and check that out. Now let's go on to today's episode, the different signs and symbols that kind of come through. So I do want to start by talking about, when we talk about receiving signs and spirits, what do I mean? What are the signs from spirit that we get? What are the types of signs? And so we're going to talk about only a couple of categories here. This is not sort of a complete list. These are just sort of the main ones that me and the majority of my clients tend to experience. So the first one that I want to talk about is angel numbers or number patterns. So things like seeing every time you look up at the clock, you see 1111 or 222 or 333, or a number pattern like 1234 or 1122, right? All of those sort of number patterns, we like to call those angelic numbers, right? And we don't only see them on the clock, although I would argue probably that's most often where people see them. You might see them on license plates. You might see them on, the video timer, the timestamp when you're watching a video on YouTube, for example, when you just happen to look up, it's 11:11, minutes on the video, right? It could be on a timer. It could be anywhere. So these numbers are showing up as symbols and signs and messages for you from your guides. Other signs and examples of signs and symbols can actually be specific shapes or just images, right? So things like a flower or a heart image or some kind of fruit, or really any type of image that can act as sort of an emblem or a symbol that continuously shows up in your life. And we're going to talk about what that means and what to do with that. And then the last one being animal totems. So seeing specific animals repeatedly over and over again as a sign or wink from your guides. But there's also sort of the animal totem as it's just a once in a while situation where an animal, a live animal, crosses your path unexpectedly, and what to do about that, or what does that mean for you when that happens. And birds as well, birds and bugs included in this category as well. So live animals acting as animal totems, as opposed to animal symbols, which are similar to flowers or hearts or something else, where it's an image of an animal. So those two there's a distinction between those two, and we're going to talk about that. So yeah, let's talk about what we can do with these different signs. But before we do, I do want to say that there is sort of an umbrella term for what is happening when you get any of these signs and symbols. So anything under the categories that I just listed, if you are seeing a number, you're seeing an animal totem, you're seeing an image, a heart or a flower or whatever repeated or showing up in your life unexpectedly, the umbrella message is coming from spirit saying that you are on the right path. They are reminding you in that moment, your spirit guides are reminding you that they are with you in that moment, and they're giving you a little wink or a nudge from the universe to continue forward. You're on the right path. We approve. We are showing you that you are on the path. You are aligned in some way in that moment. So whenever you get any type of sign or symbol, if you don't have the time to sort of dive into what is the deeper meaning of it, it's always, always, always just a wink from your spirit guides. We are with you in this moment. You are aligned in this moment. You are making the right decision. You are on the right path. So always sort of go from there, right? You can always just kind of, every time I see 11:11 on the clock, I'm not thinking, oh, what is the meaning? What's the message behind it? I just simply say, thank you, spirit guides, out loud, and know that my spirit guides are letting me know, hey, we're with you right now. We're supporting you. You're not alone right now. And maybe that you're on the right path. And so it's also just a beautiful reminder that we are never alone. And your guides are always letting you know that they are with you in this moment. Now, there is something to be said about, an awareness that once you sort of have something in your awareness, that you start to notice it more because your brain is attuned to look for it. And so there is truth to be said about that. There's science that backs it, that, once you start to become aware of a certain thing, you suddenly start to see it more in your life. But I want to kind of argue from the spiritual perspective that the more that you acknowledge to your spirit guides that you're seeing them, that you're hearing them, that you're receiving their messages, the more that they feel inclined to show up in your life and to offer more messages and send you new ones. So I do always say that when you do receive a wink or a nod from your guides, you see an angel number, you see a sign, you see an animal of some kind, to always kind of quietly, and I'll do this out loud, kind of very quietly whisper, thank you, spirit guides, I see you. And this kind of gives my spirit guides an understanding that they know that I received the message, and they can start to send me a different one. Otherwise, they will send the same message over and over again until you've acknowledged that you got the message. They don't read minds necessarily, especially at first. I would say, yes, there's something to be said about telepathy. Once you develop your intuitive abilities, you can have sort of telepathic conversations with your spirit guides. But at first, I do always remind beginners that you should and try to speak out loud to your spirit guides, because then they can acknowledge and we can build this relationship. We can have a conversation with them. So once you do acknowledge that you've seen the sign, you will stop seeing the same one and you'll start to get a new one. So if I'm seeing 11:11 everywhere and, in one day, and I finally, take a moment to say, thank you, spirit guides, I see you. Thank you for the message. Suddenly the message changes and I will get a new message or another layer of the message they're trying to send me, a different symbol coming through. So always acknowledge your guides, always say thank you. They're letting you know they're with you in that moment. And that in and of itself is such a beautiful gift. Now, I do want to go into the specifics of the different signs and what they actually mean. So we'll start with angel numbers. So, those numbers on the clock, 11:11, 1111, 222, all of the things. And I do want to claim that I am not an expert in the meanings of these things, but that and I don't often say this, but I do want to kind of argue here that angel numbers are pretty Googleable, if that's a word. You can Google them. And there are a lot of really beautiful blogs and mediums out there who have put a lot of work and thought and effort into channeling the meanings behind these numbers. And so I'm going to kind of underline some of the main ones and some of the generic ones that I have experienced and or channeled from my guides as my interpretation or understanding of them. And if that interpretation doesn't feel good for you, definitely go and do a little bit of research. Look up what are the meanings, because each of the numbers can sort of hold a bunch of different meanings based on different categories in your life. So, for example, a certain number like 222 can mean one thing for your business and something else for your love life. Right. And so depending on the context and the moment that you see it, and it can mean different things for what it means for you in that moment when they're telling you you're aligned in that moment. What does it mean? Or what is it a reminder for? So this is the one time that I will say with the numbers, because usually numbers don't tend to have metaphorical significance to us. There's no kind of meaning that we can interpret for them, that you can go and Google them and find a meaning that does feel good for you, that resonates with you, and trust your gut, trust the meaning that resonates with you. And so you can always go by that. And again, there's always the umbrella understanding of it's just your guides letting you know they're there with you. But let's start with some of the common ones, the ones that I know to have very specific meanings and that I have channeled for myself or experienced for myself. So the most common one I would say is probably 1111, right? Seeing that on the clock, it can be either 111 or 1111. So either 3 ones or 4 ones, doesn't really matter. But I would say this is one that people see the most often. And from my understanding, this number pattern represents that you are either already or about to go through a spiritual awakening. So when we think about the 1111 as it shows up on the clock, we think of it as representing sort of the 2 gates of the angelic realm. So 11 on one side and 11 on the other side, kind of held up together, looks like 2 gates, right? A portal opening for you. So there, you're starting to step into a spiritual awakening, an angelic awakening, whatever you want to call it. It really is a sign that you are starting to step into your intuitive abilities. You're starting to gain a new awareness. You're stepping into this understanding that there is more beyond the physical realm that we reside in. And there are other beings out there to support us. So that's always the biggest one. I see this one still most often. And I like to think that it's also kind of a wink and a nod from my angels letting me know, hey, we're still with you in this moment as well. So not only are my spirit guides with me, but my angels are with me too. And it's just such a beautiful reminder. And so if you're seeing 1111 everywhere, it's probably a pretty good sign that you're stepping into your intuitive abilities and your guides are letting you know that you're on the right path and to continue to pay attention. Say thank you to them. Say thank you, I see you, and wait for them to start sending you new messages later on, and see what other numbers or symbols start to come through once you acknowledge that you, in fact, are going through this spiritual awakening. So the next number that we're going to talk about is 222. Now, 222 is all about balance. Usually, if you're seeing 222, it's actually coming to you as a reminder that you are needing to step into alignment. So it's more, instead of it being a wink or a nod that you're a wink or a nod that you're in alignment in this moment, it's more of a push to remind you that you're out of balance in some way. So this is sort of a reminder to look around and kind of see, are you feeling stressed or overwhelmed at this particular moment when you're seeing this number? Are things feeling out of balance? Are you stretched too thin? Are you pouring too much of yourself into one area of your life and neglecting other parts of your life? Often I will see 222 when I'm feeling particularly stressed or overwhelmed by one category in my life. Perhaps I've been neglecting self-care in deference, in preference to working too hard, or perhaps I've been neglecting some aspect of myself in some way. I'm maybe not in alignment in that moment. So 222 kind of is one of those ones that will show up when I'm maybe not being my best self, right? I find myself kind of maybe on the verge of yelling at my son or or my husband, or kind of being snarky or in a bad mood, and 222 shows up as like, you are not in balance. Maybe you need some self-care, you need some moments to take care of yourself and nurture yourself. You've been leaning too much into either work or taking care of others and not taking care of yourself. What is out of balance? What needs nurturing? What is out of alignment? In all categories, mind, body, and soul. And when I do see that number, I do take it very seriously, and I do go and take a few minutes to myself and realign and rebalance and reassess, because I'm obviously showing up as not my truest self, my highest self in that moment. And my guides are giving me a little nod to nurture myself. Usually it's because I've neglected self care in some way, forgotten to eat, forgotten to, meditate or take some time or a moment for myself, and I'm running on fumes. And this is when 222 will often show up in my life. So that one's more of a, instead of your guide saying just that you're in alignment, rather they're letting you know that you're out of alignment in that moment. Um, 333, this one I had to Google, to be honest. I don't see it very often in my life. It's all about creativity, supposedly. Again, this is one of the ones that I would argue that you might want to Google. There's a lot to be said about the number three. I would say there's probably something to do with balance. There's, if we talk about sort of a triangle, or, there are deeper meanings to number 333. I just don't have much experience with it. The only one that I really understand is sort of creativity, that you're in some sort of creative flow, that, new ideas are coming your way, to pay attention to the intuitive downloads that are coming to you, new insights, new ideas, new levels of inspiration coming to you, to pay attention to them in this moment, to be used for sort of whatever endeavors you're pursuing in that moment. And so it's sort of kind of like a reminder to pay attention to your ideas in this moment, or to notice that now is the time that you're probably most creative, or in your most creative flow. So if you were intending on writing something or creating something or building something, that would be the time that you would be most in flow. And so kind of using that as a signal of like, now's the time that I would go and, write the social media post, or create the program, or do the thing that I've been intending to do or create or build. 333 is your indication that now's the time. That's when your kind of portal is open, your claircognizant portal is open, and to allow it to come through, and channel what needs to be channeled in that moment. But definitely there's more in-depth explanations of 333 online, so I highly recommend going to Google that one. Again, I have limited experience with it. I don't tend to see it very often as an angel number in my experience, but other people see it quite a bit. So I would definitely go and look that one up. 444 is one that I actually do see quite a lot. And this one is all about building foundations. So it's often a sign that you are aligned in business, or that the foundations that you're laying down are going to reap financial reward in some way. And so it's more of a sign of like, kind of head down, keep working, continue to go, and that you're building a strong foundation, or to continue to build a strong foundation if you haven't started to already. Often when I'm making business decisions, or trying to make a business decision, and I am feeling indecisive in that moment, do I make this choice or do I not? Is when 444 will show up as a reminder to me, this is the right choice. You're aligned. Make this decision. Go forward. Go ahead. So I really enjoy receiving this one, especially when I'm trying to sort of make deals with somebody, or make a big choice in my business that feels scary. 444 will often show up as a reminder, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right path. Go ahead and make that choice. And so it's really nice to have that one, kind of hanging out in my field. And so, yeah, there's definitely more than just business that it's related to. It is all about building foundations. So this can also relate to building a good foundation in a relationship, building a good foundation, really in any endeavor that you're sort of pursuing. And so if you're creating something as well, and you're making, it's really kind of helpful when you're making decisions. Like, is this the right choice? Often 444 will show up as a reminder of like, yes, you're on the right path. This is the right choice. Make the choice, right? That you were leaning into. And it acts as sort of confirmation for you. So, I could go through all of the numbers, but I think that would take up this entire podcast. And honestly, most of the angelic numbers, as I said, are Googleable. So those are the four I'm going to touch on today as the main ones that I often experience. I tend to only experience repeating numbers. I don't have much experience with ones that are like number patterns, such as 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 1, 2, 2, those kind of things. And there's very nuanced meanings behind those numbers. So again, they're very researchable. Definitely go and look them up if there's a number I didn't mention that you're experiencing, because there is usually a meaning behind it. So let's move on to sort of other signs and symbols that you could experience from your guides and what to do with them and what they mean. So, other symbols is when I talk about signs and symbols, I really mean an image that sort of pops up for you frequently as a sign or signal from the universe. So, I do want to distinguish this as separate from an animal totem, because a sign can look like an animal, it can be an image of an animal, but that is different than an actual animal crossing your path. So I do want to make that distinction here, because I do experience a lot of signs and symbols in the form of animals, but they are images of animals, not the actual live animal, usually. And we'll talk about what the animals mean. But other signs and symbols can really be sort of any image that you see repeatedly over and over again. So there's a beautiful author, Mel Robbins. She has a beautiful book called The 5 Second Rule, and she talks a lot about in the book of seeing heart shapes everywhere as her wink from the universe, and seeing them in nature, right? Sudden, like everywhere she looks, she sees a heart-shaped rock, or, a heart on a window or a heart on a necklace. And it just feels like everywhere she looks, spirit or the universe is giving her little winks in the form of hearts, which is really beautiful. So some people see it as hearts. Some people see a certain color show up everywhere, and it's like a very odd color to show up in different places. So it could be a color. For some people, it's this very specific type of flower, a very specific type of bird, right? Image of a bird, not the actual bird. It could be a fruit. And so it can really be anything. So I have described sort of my experience with signs and symbols. Mine being the very first symbol I ever received being an image of a lion showing up in a meditation for me, and then a little boy pointing it out to me in a figurine, in a statue, sort of later on, a couple of days later, kind of spirit letting me know, that wasn't, you didn't make that up, right? That was us. We did show you that image in your meditation. And now here in real life is a figurine of a lion. This also showed up for me actually in the form of an owl. And so later down the road, at the beginning of my spiritual awakening, my husband and I were planning a trip. We were planning on taking a road trip, and we're unsure if it was the right time to be spending some money on a vacation, because we knew that I was about to quit my teaching job and switch to substitute teaching as I went to go ahead and build this business. So I asked my guides, please let me know, should we be taking this trip? Is this, the right time to go on this vacation? And in my meditation, I saw the image of an owl. And so again, me kind of wondering, well, what does that mean? Right? What does an owl mean? Again, I let it go. And then we went on our trip, and we stayed in a bunch of different Airbnbs. And every Airbnb that we stayed in had an owl figurine, more than one, all over the places that we were staying. So images of owls on the welcome mats, figurines of owls on the mantelpieces. The toothbrush holder was shaped like an owl. There were like wooden owls decorating the backyards. I mean, literally everywhere we went, every Airbnb we stayed at had several owl images or figurines all over the place, as my guide sort of confirming for me that yes, this was a trip that you were meant to take. And it was one of the best trips that my husband and I ever took together. And we still remember it very fondly as one of our favorite trips, traveling experiences that we've had together. So we're very glad that we did take that trip, and that spirit was with us that whole time, letting us know this is aligned, this is for you. You should have gone on that trip. And so that one was really beautiful for us. And I do want to say that when these signs show up for you, when you see it in a meditation, um, the point is to sort of surrender, right? So we can sit in a meditation, we can sort of ask our guides, show me a sign, right? Trust the first image that comes to mind, whatever pops up in your brain, as random as it may feel, right? I never understood why. I never really resonated with a lion or really resonated with an owl. at first, until I start to see them. But and then you just kind of surrender and let go of the how it's going to show up in your life, or when or where, and just kind of it's really kind of fun. It's like a big surprise when it does pop up. And you're never going to have to guess, is this the sign from spirit? Because it really does kind of come across your path really obviously, so much so that it's almost like it smacked you in between the eyes, right? You really can't deny that it was from spirit, that it came through, that it's usually not random. And so, I want to give another example of this that happened to my friend, when she too was just starting to go through a spiritual awakening. And we went to a women's circle together and we meditated. And the woman who was running the meditation circle told us to ask our spirit guides for a sign and a symbol. And we came out of the meditation and she was laughing and she goes, "The image I saw in my mind was a pineapple." And she was laughing so hard. She goes, "What the heck? A pineapple?" Right? Everyone's getting these animals totems, right? These very specific kind of like shapes or colors or flowers. And or animals, and she got a pineapple. And so we laughed a little bit about it. And she worked in a children's shoe store and she went to work the next day and, going about her regular day. And then two little girls walked in and they were wearing these shirts. And these like really trendy, these really popular shirts where it's like, they're like glitter, I think, where like if you rub it one way, it looks sparkly, and then if you rub it the other way, they kind of are matted, but it's an image, and it's a shirt, and they were really kind of popular. And so there were these two little sisters. They walked in wearing these giant pineapples on their shirt. And what's funny is these two little girls, I think that I don't know if they were frequent customers in the store or if she'd never met them before. That part I can't remember, but what I do know she said was it was so crazy. The little girls walked into the store, went right up to her and gave her a big hug. And she was shocked, right? Literally, the pineapples came and hugged her, right? Girls wearing pineapples, hugging her right away. And that was her big, huge, chills all over confirmation that her spirit guides were not joking when they sent her a pineapple. They sent her two really adorable little girls wearing pineapple t shirts to give her a really big hug. Oh, little baby is making some noise here. And so that one's really beautiful of an example of sort of or the spirit guides kind of hitting you in the face with that symbol. It really comes through so obviously that you cannot deny it. And so I will say, don't go looking for them. Know that they're going to come to you, literally going to hit you across the face, right? For me, a little boy dragged me up and showed me the picture or the figurine, right? And for her, a little girl kind of came and ran and hugged her, wearing a pineapple t-shirt. So they really do come through very, very clearly. Um, and so I do want to say that you can ask for these signs and symbols, right? Get into a meditative state, take a few deep breaths, call in your spirit guides, spirits of the light, are you here with me? Show me a sign or symbol to confirm that you are here with me, or just show me a sign and symbol, right? To show that I'm on the right path. If you're having a question that you need an answer to, right? That you're not sure if you're making the right choice, right? You can ask for a sign as confirmation that this is the right choice for you. And again, just trust this whatever image comes to mind in that moment, even if you think you're making it up, even if you think you imagined it, trust it anyway. Then say thank you, and then just go about your regular life and wait for it to show up in your life because it will. It will show up when you least expect it and very obviously. So that's really how you go about doing it. You can, in fact, ask for a specific sign, but I do kind of want to dissuade you from doing that because number one, it takes a little bit of the fun out of it. But number two, it kind of doesn't lend itself very well to the idea of surrendering. When we are in a place of surrender, we surrender what the sign should be, right? If we're trying to manipulate or decide what the sign is going to be, then we're going to be looking for it. We're going to be questioning whether we were the ones who sort of manipulated the situation or made it up, or because we wanted to see it, or because we chose it. We're going to be doubting whether or not it actually came from spirit, or because we chose it, therefore we were looking for it. So I recommend instead to just get into a meditative state, take a few deep breaths, call on your guides, ask for a sign and symbol, and trust the first image that comes to mind that you imagine in that moment, and go from there. That's always the best way to go about it, if you ask me. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about animal totems, because animal totems are a little bit different. So, like I said, an image of an animal is separate from an actual live animal showing up in your life. And when I mean an animal showing up in your life, I mean like an animal, a live animal kind of crossing your path unexpectedly, usually quite obviously, right? They're walking right in front of your car, or they're standing right outside your window, or there's a bug really up in your space, right? Spider crawling across your desk as you're working, right? Something along those lines where they're really kind of there and it was unexpectedly so. And this is sort of what we would call an animal totem. So I'm going to give a few examples of what these animal totems are and kind of what they might mean for you. And so first and foremost, a big one that a lot of people experience with animal totems are birds. So very specific birds sort of coming across your path. And I do want to say that birds or bird feathers, for that matter, tend to act as a sign of an angelic realm kind of being with you. So the angelic world being with you in that moment, kind of letting you know they're either offering you healing energy, that you're going through a spiritual awakening, or that you're being supported by angels in that moment. And what I mean by this is it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific bird, but rather kind of birds crossing your path in a really obtrusive way. And so this can look like kind of, looking out your window and seeing like an insane amount of flock of birds sitting on your front porch. It can look like birds sort of getting really close to your windshield when you're driving in your car. Almost feels like they're going to hit your window. It can literally be a bird hitting your window. Lots of flocks of birds kind of coming your way. The reason that we say that birds are associated with angels, usually, quite literally because they have wings and so do angels. That's the only explanation I've ever received for it, is that birds and angels or angels are easily able to manipulate birds in their flight path, in some way. And so if birds are coming very close to you, it's really good sign that angels are with you in that moment, or that you're going through a spiritual awakening and you're able to connect with your angels in some way. And so, definitely it can get a little bit aggressive as you're going through a very intense spiritual awakening. If you're stepping into your intuition, you'll see more and more birds show up, and sometimes more and more aggressively so. I know this happened for me to the point where birds were hitting my windows and getting hurt. Birds flying across my dashboard when I'm driving and getting hurt. It got really intense to the point where I actually had to call in my guides and ask them to calm down, to say, kind of, I get the message. I see I'm going through a spiritual awakening. Please don't hurt the birds, right? Like, please let them, back off a little bit. But if this is happening for you, you're seeing a lot of birds kind of coming through really quickly, really strongly, really powerfully, and in kind of big flocks. A really good sign that your intuition is that you're stepping into an up level. You're up leveling your intuitive abilities in this moment. Your intuitive abilities are turning on. You're attuning to a new frequency. And birds tend to sense that for some reason, or that I don't know if it's the birds are sensing it or angels are manipulating them. That I don't really know. But I know that anytime that my intuitive abilities have strengthened or heightened in some way, where I feel like there's been an up level, that's when birds really start to kind of show up in swarms, and really get sometimes uncomfortably close to me. And I know that this has been a similar experience for many of my colleagues as well, other mediums I know, who have experienced the same thing. So there's something to it. I don't know exactly why birds, but again, I think because they both have wings and angels have some sort of manipulation power over them, is my guess. But there are also certain birds that can act as a wink, or a nod from loved ones who have passed away. So most commonly, what I have seen from from clients and anecdotally from other people, is that if red cardinals are showing up in your life all of a sudden, so those beautiful little red birds, red cardinals, kind of coming very close to you or showing up kind of on your front porch or on your front yard, that could be a wink from a loved one who has passed away, letting you know that they are there with you in this moment, that they're saying hello. This can also be, this can also come from hummingbirds as well. So if you're seeing hummingbirds or red cardinals, chances are that it's a loved one, somebody who's passed away, coming to say hello, coming to let you know that they're there with you in that moment. So that's a really beautiful one. And I really love that. Another one is also I've seen with clients, is it can also be butterflies, very specific butterflies, maybe coming through or landing very close to you, can sometimes be a loved one. This one's a little bit less common. Usually the loved one will let you know if that's sort of the sign they're sending. But definitely red cardinals or hummingbirds are really commonly known as winks from loved ones who have passed away, coming to say hello. And so the other animals that can kind of show up in your life can really be any animal that kind of crosses your path unexpectedly, and they tend to have very specific messages for you. Um, and so again, this is one of those things where once again, you can Google it, right? You can look up what does the animal totem mean of this particular animal coming through. There's also a really great book called Animal Spirit Guides by Stephen D. Farmer, and I'll link it in the show notes, that I and a lot of my friends refer to when instances like this come up, because he really does offer like a really in-depth explanation of why this particular animal is crossing your path in that moment, and what the message is from spirit when it does come through. But again, there's something to be said about kind of, thinking about what does that animal represent for you. So if you sort of think on a metaphorical level or a poetic level, when I think of this animal, what do I think of, right? For example, if we think of a lion, right, do I think of bravery? Do I think of courage, right? Um, is that what's resonating with me in that moment? But if you're really unsure, it's an animal you're unfamiliar with, definitely check out animal spirit guides or Google it, right? What does this animal mean? And then again, trust the answer that comes through, or the result that resonates most with you, because different cultures are going to have different meanings for different animals, right? For some people, seeing a rat, right, is considered really gross and really yucky, and maybe you're thinking something negative and untoward is about to happen. But in other cultures, seeing a rat is considered extremely lucky. And so I really kind of caution you when you're doing this, do it with discernment. If you're going to Google it, kind of find one that resonates and feels good, not one that scares you, I guess, is the best advice I can give. But I'm gonna give you an example of this because I had a really strange interaction with an animal totem not too long ago, and this was, I guess, over a year and a half ago when my husband and I were searching for a new house. So we were about to buy our first home, and we were going through the process, and we were finding ourselves quite frustrated. There were not many homes on the market within our price range, or in the neighborhood that we were really hoping to buy. We were getting quite frustrated. We were driving up every weekend. We were planning on moving almost an hour away. So driving over there with, our 1-year-old at the time who hated the car was already really treacherous. And kind of not loving the prospects of the houses that we were finding within our price range, and just feeling really defeated. And I remember, and at the time we were living at my mother-in-law's house, saving up and getting ready to move. And I had gone out to the park with Noah in the stroller. And when we came back, it was the middle of the afternoon. A possum was sitting on our front porch, right in front of our door. Now, from what I understand, possums are usually nocturnal animals. So it's very rare that they would be in the middle of the day sitting on your front porch. And I don't particularly enjoy these animals. I find them quite gross. I don't know. To me, they're synonymous with rats. I'm not a huge fan of finding them on my front porch, and didn't know what to do about it, right? He's just sitting there staring at me, didn't want to go to the front door, didn't want to go near it. And again, it was peculiar that it would show up in the middle of the day. From what I understand, they're nocturnal animals. So right away, I kind of went, okay, this is a spirit totem. This is a sign from spirit. And I right away went and looked up, what does possum mean? What is the animal totem for possum? And when I looked it up, it said that it is all about changing strategy. I believe that's what it was. It was a meaning for adaptability and strategic thinking. And so needing to be flexible, needing to adapt, needing to rethink your plan, needing to kind of surrender a little bit, but more kind of be more strategic in the way that you're thinking and be more flexible in the way that you're thinking. So I thought about this, and my husband and I sort of then decided to kind of give up on some of the very specific, um, I guess, pieces that we were planning on having in terms of buying our house. We had a very specific city we wanted to be in, a very specific type of house that we were looking for, and we were really coming up short in the results of what we were looking for. And so after I saw this possum, my husband and I had a conversation of what if we expanded our horizons? What if we looked in other cities that were close by, sort of some of the adjacent cities? What if we let go of the type of house that we particularly want? What if we kind of like open up adjust our strategy a little bit, kind of open up the very narrow guidelines that we had given our real estate agent and see what happens? And it was only once we did that, and literally the next time that we went, which was, a couple of days later, house hunting, that we kind of opened up, the possibility to look in other places, to look at different types of homes, that we actually ended up finding the perfect home in a city that we didn't expect to be living in at all, and a type of house that we didn't expect to be living in. And it ended up being absolutely perfect for us. And we never would have even looked at this home had we not sort of adapted our strategy, had we not kind of been a little bit more flexible. And I know it sounds silly, but I really thank that possum for showing up in my life and kind of telling me or reminding me to be a little bit more flexible, to change my strategy in the way that we were searching, because it had been months of searching with no results. And this was really, really powerful for me. So that's kind of my example of an animal totem showing up in my life with a very specific message that really did shift and allow us to then find the perfect house for us. And the funny thing is that the thing that we thought we wanted was not actually so aligned with who we really are. We had a different ideal of what we were ready for, as opposed to what was actually perfect for our current reality. And, the type of maintenance that a house that we were dreaming of would need. And so, us sort of expanding our horizons to a house that was a little bit more move in ready, that was in a bit more of a neighborhood as opposed to a more rural area, right? All of these things made it so much more easy and actually did suit our current lifestyle and where we currently were, as opposed to the dream that we think we will end up doing eventually. So yeah, it worked out very perfectly for us. And so I do thank that possum for reminding us to change our strategy in our house hunting endeavors. So that's my example of an animal totem. So, like I said, when animals kind of cross your path, definitely look it up. Check out Animal Spirit Guides by Stephen Farmer. I'm going to link it in the show notes so that kind of can take the very specific messages that your guides are sending you when they do cross your path. So remember that, that's kind of all I really have to share about sort of signs and symbols and spirit animals for today. But I do want to remind you that, at the end of the day, we're all part of source, right? We're all a piece of the master. And so nothing that kind of comes across your path, in my opinion, is ever just a coincidence or an accident. Everything that's coming across your path is happening for you, not to you. It's there to help you. It's there to guide you along your way. Your guides are always communicating with you. The question is, are you going to pay attention? Are you going to open your eyes and find meaning in the signs and symbols that come your way? And so hopefully this will give you a little starter guide as to how you might go about doing so. And you can start to ask for those signs and remember that your guides do want to work with you. They're always trying to capture your attention, and they do need acknowledgement that you are hearing them. So always remember to thank them, acknowledge that you see the messages and signs so that they can continue to send you new ones. If you're seeing the same one over and over again, it's probably an indication that you didn't acknowledge to your guides that you received the message or that you took action on the message that they're sending. They will continue to they will be quite relentless in sending you the same message over and over again until you actually make a change or acknowledge that you received the message. So definitely out loud, thank your guides so that they can start to send you more messages along the way. So that's all I have to share about this topic for today. If you like what you heard or it resonated with you, don't forget to rate and review this podcast, give it a 5-star review, and share this episode with a friend so that even more people can find this show and start to develop their intuitive abilities. That's everything I have for this week. Sending so much love and light your way, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.